Hey, Brian, so great to have you here on the Acting and Modeling Success Summit 2012. And I just want to let everybody know, Brian's been a working actor and a commercial model for quite a few years. And he also started a pretty amazing website. It's called Dragonuk Connects. And you can see all the information right on your slide, on the slide from the PowerPoint on your monitor. And so Brian is somebody who went from a pretty straight kind of job to all of a sudden getting into the acting and commercial modeling industry later in life. And so I wanted to start off by just asking you, what kind of work were you doing prior to acting and modeling?
Um, my main career, I spent 25 years as a vice president of three different insurance companies. But immediately before going into acting, I was working in the art department of a book and greeting card manufacturer. Now, I'm not an artist. When the artist designed something, I made the mock-ups that they used to show it to the salesmen, to main customers, to try to pre-sell. And at age 47, that company was on its way going bankrupt, and I was looking for part-time work to try to build a bank account so that I could take and use my vacation time up. And I got on my first movie set, The Replacements, in 1999.
The
And that's
Keanu
what
Reeves
started
movie.
it.
It was
Yes.
Keanu Reeves, right?
Yes. Keanu Reeves, Gene Hackman, Reese Ifans. I went on vacation so that I was getting the paycheck from the greeting card company, and worked 43 days from August to October on the set of The Replacements.
So what kind of work were you doing as an extra on that? What was it like for you?
Um, Actually, coming in, it was fun. I mean, it was the starry-eyed, I'm on a movie set, and basically each day they had between 300 and 500 extras sitting in the stands just cheering as something went on the football field. That's where I started out. I was there for a couple of weeks, just doing that, and so it was meeting a lot of new people, finding out that some of them were full-time actors, others this was their first job, same as me, and I did a lot of networking, came up with a lot of good information, and then I worked my way down onto the field as a photographer, and then from the field I got up into the owner's box. So I was pretty well all over the movie, getting into more and more exposure items. And there is two really good shots of me for maybe 30 seconds in the movie The Replacements, my first movie totally. So
And you know what?
I
And
was
it's
really
interesting.
happy with.
It's interesting because sometimes there are some actors who have the philosophy of do not ever do extra work. It's going to kill your career. People are just going to view you as an extra, and and I get that. And actually, I've talked about this quite a bit. But there are some real advantages where you can make connections. So then you go from The Replacements, and what happens next?
John Waters was coming to town to film Cecil B. Demented, and one of the other actors had a phone number to call in and leave your name and telephone number, because they were looking for large quantities of extras as well. And at lunchtime, 100 of us got on cell phones and left our information at Pat Moran's office.
Who was
And
casting? that
who
movie,
was
right?
casting Cecil B. Demented, and 100 of us went from the Replacements right over to the Senator Theater to shoot the opening scenes of Cecil B. Demented. So that was actually my second project right away. And my
Which I guess you
third
wouldn't have heard
project
about had you not been doing extra work on a previous film.
on the previous film, networking is a very, very important thing. One of the other things that I found out about at on the Replacements and that I applied for, now this is in October of '99, Johns Hopkins University was starting a new program where they were hiring actors to play patients in order to help train medical students. And that actually became my third acting job. It's live, scripted patient work, one-on-one, in an exam room with a medical student, and going through I've got a script that tells me, and they have to do an evaluation. They have to do a very cursory exam, nothing more than taking your blood pressure and listening to your heart and lungs and stuff like that. No invasive stuff, and they have to come up with a treatment plan and get graded on it. And it's live practical training. Hopkins was the first one in our area. There are now 17 programs within driving distance of my house. And that was something new that I'd never heard of or thought about as part of acting, but it really is. They're nice little scripts, and you see 4, 5, 6 students on an 8-hour day, and it's something that I'm still doing. I'm still working at Johns Hopkins doing the patient training, and that led me to police training for several Virginia police academies. Again, they're hiring actors to be bad guys, to be witnesses, to be victims, and sending their officers through these live training scenarios in order to evaluate what they have learned, how they're going to react on their feet in a simulated real situation.
And it's amazing
And
because I was just going to say, because that also can lead to, there are law schools that will hire actors
yeah,
to.
I've done those as well. They put on mock trials where the professor from the university is usually the judge, but they hire juries and bailiffs, and they hire witnesses for the prosecution and witnesses for the defense, and that is all to get 2 of their students, one prosecuting and one defending, in order to evaluate what they do in courtroom situations.
And there's
And
also work.
that's,
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, and there's also work for the government too. You've got CIA, you've got FBI, and
yeah,
they
I've,
hire
I've
actors.
done I've done all of those. Most of the academies, they have a main training school down in Georgia, but most of the individual agencies have their own academies that the people come to after they go to Georgia. And Georgia is more of a broad-based training for everything, and the Secret Service is in Beltsville, Maryland. Their academy just teaches the skills that the Secret Service needs. The FBI training academies in Quantico, Virginia, they do the same thing. The DEAs in Fort A.P. Hill, Virginia.
Now, do
So
you
I
know,
have worked
oh, go ahead.
all of those academies.
Now, do you know, are there services like this that would be available to people in many other parts of the country? Now, certainly you're not going to have the CIA or the FBI headquarters there, but, I wonder if there are law schools all throughout the country that hire actors, and if there are teaching hospitals
The,
or medical
the,
schools.
the medical schools have been at this the longest, and they seem to be the most prolific. So if you're in Mississippi and you have a university with a medical
Medical school there.
that teaches medicine and a hospital connected with that university, chances are they have a program like this.
Now, in the
Now,
DC area, do they generally pay by the hour? Is that how those things work?
yeah, it's mostly hourly, anywhere from $17 to $22 an hour in the D.C. area, Baltimore, Washington area. Down towards Richmond, there's a place that's only paying 10 an hour. There are still some that only want volunteers, not paid people, but those are still good for you as well. These scripted patients is a beautiful place for you to learn how to get into character and to hone your trade. And if you pay attention to what the medical student is doing and what they're learning, then the next time there's a TV commercial or something for a movie part or whatever local where they need a nurse or they need a doctor or they need an EMT, if you paid attention and you know how to use the stethoscope, know how to use the blood pressure cuff, know how to do this, to do that, you've got to step up on everybody else. Now, this type of work isn't something that belongs on your standard resume, but again, if you're applying to an agent or a casting director for the part of, let's say, a nurse, in your cover letter, you state that you work at Johns Hopkins University training the medical students, and these are scenarios that you have done in your cover letter. It can't hurt you. It doesn't belong on your regular resume, but if you go to my personal acting website, the B. Dragonuk website, and look in the resume section, you will find that I have a separate resume just for hospitals, a separate resume just for the police academies that I have worked at, as well as my standard acting resume. They're all separate because when I want to go to a different center to do patient work, I have a resume that shows the work that I have done at Johns Hopkins, at University of Maryland, at Walter Reed, at Georgetown, at GW Medical Center, at Howard University. That's all on my special resume for just that kind of work, to get that kind of work.
Now, Brian, you also. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to jump in because I know we're starting to run out of time a little bit, and I want to make sure people know about this. A number of years ago, you created this unbelievable listserv where you were sending out information about. It seemed like it was primarily in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Virginia area, about auditions, about go-sees, about jobs that were coming up, and which you still offer people. And for people who would like to be on that list, do they just contact or send a note to the B. Dragonuk at Hotmail, or what is the best website?
No, that
Or
is
no?
the DragonukConnects.com. All right.
Okay,
So on the slide that they have, it has /3, which takes
correct.
them to my profile in Dragonuk Connects. If they don't put the /3 and just go www.dragonukconnects.com, that takes them to the homepage of the website, and there's a place for them to sign up. They have to complete the entire profile because all of their wardrobe sizes, their height, their hair color, their union status, that all makes a difference for jobs. They have to post their headshots and their resumes to it in order to get it, because I do send a daily newsletter, and I'm sending roughly 125 to 150 jobs a week out, union and non-union. That goes out in the newsletter, but I also have certain times when somebody is looking for a 55-year-old overweight male that can play a police officer. So they give me heights and weights and everything, and I plug that into the computer, and that notice only goes to the people who have that information in their profile. So any unanswered question can cost you a job. You have to fill the profile out.
Hey, Brian, sounds like we've got some questions for you. So if it's
Okay?
okay with you, you ready to take some questions?
Sure enough.
Okay.
Geraldine asks Brian, how do you approach these places to offer your services as an actor? I think she's referring to, the different medical schools or other things like that. How do you approach them?
Basically, I got a contact off of the set of the replacements that was the person that was hiring for Johns Hopkins. As the other programs came into being, I heard about them through other actors. But if you're interested, if you've got a medical center that's part of a university nearby you, just calling them and seeing whether they have a clinical education department and getting to somebody that can tell you who the proper person is to contact to do that type of work if they have a program.
So it's the clinical, excuse me, Brian, so it's the clinical education department, that would be the area?
Clinical education is what they call these at all of the sites that I'm familiar with. They may call it something else, someplace else, but locally they all run through as clinical education. Same thing, no matter where you are, there's a state police, there's county police, there's city police, there's sheriff's offices. Someplace they are all being trained, and any policeman should be able to tell you where their academy is, and calling the academy to see whether they hire people to do this kind of work. It may be a little bit time consuming, but if you're not getting the information by networking where somebody's giving you the complete contacts and you're going at it cold, that's how to do that. Same with the law schools. If you've got a major university nearby with a good law center, calling and talking to somebody at the law center to see whether they do mock trials as part of their training. And if they do, how do you submit your headshot and resume for them?
Brian, we've got one more question up for you.
Absolutely. So this is from Sarah. And Brian, you've been talking, the session is marketing yourself in a small market, getting work locally. So this question is, again, from Sarah. She says, I'm from Pittsburgh and have been an extra for a good amount now, trying to get into parts where I can speak or do commercials so I can move up. I'm with management that represents me, so I do all my auditions via video and YouTube since I live in Pittsburgh, and when I get the job, they fly me out. Would you say I'd get more jobs if I moved to LA, or do you have tips and strategies for getting more work where I am right in Pittsburgh?
Well, moving to New York or LA without a solid resume of principal speaking parts, if you can't get it in Pittsburgh, you're not going to get it in LA, where there's 250,000 people that are already doing speaking parts trying to get that same part. Okay? Here in Baltimore, Washington, I'm familiar with Pittsburgh because my newsletter covers Pennsylvania, and Pittsburgh is part of it. They have several different places. First, you've got your own film office there in Pittsburgh that does only local castings. So getting on their website and looking for the work that's posted there. There are several universities that have film education programs. In order to graduate, most of those people have to do a student film. The easiest way to get good, solid speaking parts is in the student films. They're not paid, but you're learning. Okay, you have to learn how to act in front of the camera, how to get into character, how to deliver believable lines, and that is a very good training ground. They even, SAG also has certain contracts for student films in order to allow the union actors to get into those films because they are such a great training ground, even though the actor's not going to get paid for their work.
Right. Actually, we actually discussed that whole concept earlier, which I think it's a great idea. To try to get some student films. Just to kind of jump in for 1 second, there are some really good work going on in Pittsburgh. There are a couple of really strong agents and casting directors in Pittsburgh. So I liked your idea, Brian, of trying to get as much principal work as you possibly can in the Pittsburgh area. It is certainly, look, if you move to LA or move to New York, there would be many, many, many more possibilities. But I also agree with you, Brian, that if you can go to those markets with some great experiences under your belt and a strong resume showing that you've been able to book jobs in a local area, it will make things much, much easier for you when you're trying to move to a large area. I mean, look, you never know what can happen. I mean, there are plenty of people that go to, large markets and without that much on their resume and actually start getting some work at some point. But I think your chances would be much better if you really got a bunch more work in the Pittsburgh area. And I mean, look, I travel to Pittsburgh to audition there, and there are films, there are TV shows that have been shot there, there are commercials, there are training films, educational films, there's commercial modeling work. So Pittsburgh is really, it's a pretty good market, and if you're not getting the phone calls that you like, then maybe you need to, search around and find the representation that's actually getting the work there for you. But I know we've got to wrap things up. For everybody listening, definitely look on your monitor and check out Brian's website. It's DragonukConnects.com, and if you want to see his personal site, it's /3. If you want to be on Brian's email listserv, which is phenomenal. It's once again, it's bdragonuk@hotmail.com, but you'll see it right on the website, or actually on the monitor. Brian, thank you so much for being here with us today, and I just want to thank you for all the work that you do that helps other actors and models in this business. I mean, Brian is one of these guys who is just selfless. He just give so much to the community, and I just personally want to thank you so much for all that you do.